What if the reason your desire hasn't shown up yet is because you're trying too hard to make it happen? Not because you're not aligned, not because you're not worthy, but because you've turned manifestation into something you do, instead of something you live. Most people are busy switching from one technique to another, visualizing in the morning, affirming all day, scripting before sleep. They treat each method like a tool they have to master before life finally says yes. But it's not the technique that brings the result. It's the state behind the technique. Neville Goddard said, "The world is a mirror, forever reflecting what you are doing within yourself." That means the thoughts you return to, the mood you wake up in, the feeling you carry without even noticing. That's what gets reflected back. You can script for an hour and still live the rest of the day from lack. You can visualize every detail but still feel like the one who doesn't have. Today you'll see why trying harder isn't the answer, and how letting go of that effort can bring you closer to what you want. We'll look at what it means to truly know something, without forcing, without searching, because when you know, you stop needing to prove. When you know, you stop waiting. Let's begin with the power of knowing. Neville Goddard often said, "Faith is loyalty to the unseen reality." That unseen reality isn't somewhere out there. It's within your own consciousness. To know your desire is fulfilled doesn't mean you've convinced yourself through repetition. It means you've accepted it so completely. It no longer feels like a desire. It feels like a fact. This kind of knowing has nothing to do with mental effort. It's not about saying "I know" while your body still feels tense and doubtful. It's a quiet, steady sense that what you've asked for is already yours, even if your senses say otherwise. Most people treat manifestation like a negotiation. They try to prove to themselves and the universe that they're worthy. They hope that if they do enough, say the right things, visualize long enough, it will happen. But hope is not knowing, and need is not fulfillment. Knowing is calm. It doesn't chase. It doesn't count days. It doesn't look for signs. It moves through the world as if the desire has already been realized, because in consciousness, it has. Imagine walking into a room where someone has already saved you a seat. You don't have to ask if you belong there. You just sit down. That's what knowing feels like. You stop trying to make space for your desire in the world because you realize the space already exists. You just had to occupy it inwardly. Neville didn't say to try. He said to assume. An assumption, when it's real, carries no tension. It's not a fight. It's a return. Ask yourself, am I treating my desire as something to be earned? Or am I allowing it to be something already accepted? This is not a call to pretend. It's a call to shift the center of your awareness, from effort to embodiment. When you know, you don't need to repeat. You don't need to obsess. You don't even need reassurance. You live with the inner tone that it's already done. And the world, being a mirror, adjusts itself accordingly. You must abandon the seeker's trap. Move from wanting to knowing. There is a subtle identity that many people carry without realizing it. The identity of the seeker. The seeker is always looking for the next answer, the next method, the next shift. They collect books, watch videos, try new rituals, and temporarily feel empowered. But underneath all that action is one quiet belief. I don't have it yet. This is the trap. The more you seek, the more you confirm that what you want is missing. Every new method, when approached from the seeker mindset, reinforces the idea that something must still be fixed, gained, or earned. Neville once said, "You are already that which you want to be." The only thing standing between you and its experience is your refusal to believe that statement. So the question is not, how do I get what I want? The real question is, who am I being right now? If you're being the seeker, you're not being the one who already has. And that's what matters most. Who you are being, not what you are doing. Imagine a person searching for a key while the key is already in their pocket. They can search all day, read instructions on where to find it, ask others for advice. But until they stop, go still and check within, they will continue to act as if it's missing. That's how most people treat manifestation. They look outward for something that only responds inwardly. To leave the seeker behind doesn't mean you stop growing or learning. It means you stop chasing from a place of lack. You begin to trust that the version of you who already has what you want is not far away. It's simply the version you haven't chosen yet. Choosing it begins with stillness, not effort. With assumption, not asking. With being, not becoming. Ask yourself, am I constantly looking for the next thing to make it work? Or am I willing to stop, breathe, and accept that I already am the one who has? Neville never asked you to become. He asked you to assume that you already are. The seeker is always preparing. The knower is always living. To truly manifest, you must understand where the power comes from. It doesn't come from repeating affirmations. It doesn't come from the right visualization or technique. It comes from alignment with something deeper, the infinite intelligence within you. Neville referred to this power as God, as imagination, as the I Am. Others call it the universe, the higher self, or the subconscious mind. But no matter the name, it is not outside of you. It is you. The moment you separate yourself from this power, when you treat it like a force you must convince or impress, you fall into struggle. You begin to act like a beggar, trying to earn a gift that was never withheld. Neville said, "Change your conception of yourself and you will automatically change the world in which you live." This change of conception doesn't require force. It requires surrender. Surrender doesn't mean giving up. It means giving in to the truth of your being, the truth that you are not separate from what you want. You are one with it in consciousness. When you feel powerless, it's because you've forgotten who you are. You've mistaken yourself for the personality, the history, the opinions, the thoughts. But beneath all of that is something constant, aware, and creative. That is the real you. To align with this power, stop trying to manipulate outcomes. Stop arguing with what you see. Instead, turn inward and remember that what you assume to be true within will shape what appears without. Ask yourself, what would I feel like if I fully trusted this power within me? What would I stop doing? What would I stop fearing? You don't need more effort. You need more stillness. Not more trying, but more trust. When you stop trying to direct the power and begin to move as one with it, life begins to unfold with a quiet order. Not because you forced it, but because you remembered who you are. Consistency beyond techniques. One of the most common reasons people struggle with manifestation is inconsistency, not in their routine but in their inner state. They dedicate 5 minutes in the morning to affirming their desire, or visualize before bed, but spend the rest of the day reacting from fear, doubt, or frustration. Neville said, "You must enter into the feeling of the wish fulfilled until it becomes so natural that you live in it." This is not about how often you do a technique. It's about how long you stay in the state. Technique without consistency is like watering a plant once a week and expecting it to thrive. It's not the action alone that matters. It's the ongoing care, the invisible daily attention to the state you live from. Every time you react to circumstances as if you are still waiting, you reinforce the version of yourself who doesn't yet have, and the outer world continues to reflect that inner identity. Ask yourself, what state do I return to when I'm not doing a technique? What emotional tone do I carry while cooking, walking, driving, thinking? If you affirm abundance, but feel tension every time you check your bank account, you are sending mixed messages, not to the universe, but to yourself. Here are 2 small shifts that make a real difference. First, use the moment just after waking. In those first few seconds, the mind is quiet and receptive. Assume your desire is fulfilled before any thought of the day intrudes. Let that assumption set the tone. Second, pay attention to idle thoughts, not the loud ones, but the soft background noise. What do you assume when you're not trying to assume anything? This is where real change happens. Not during the technique, but in the hours that follow. Not in how well you visualize, but in how steadily you carry the state. The law doesn't respond to scattered moments of clarity. It responds to your dominant inner atmosphere. When your inner world remains faithful to the feeling of already having, the outer world has no choice but to reflect it. Not because you forced it, but because you consistently lived it. Then, drop the ritual. Live in the tone of completion. Many people fall into the habit of ritualizing their desires. They light candles, set timers, repeat affirmations at specific hours, script during new moons, and follow endless steps as if they're unlocking a code. None of these actions are wrong, but the question is, why are you doing them? If the ritual is a natural expression of inner knowing, it can carry power. But if it's driven by fear that without it, things won't work, you're not manifesting from faith. You're manifesting from anxiety. Neville Goddard spoke often about feeling the wish fulfilled, not performing to make it happen, but assuming it already has. In one of his lesser-known lectures, he said, "You do not visualize or imagine as a work. You imagine because you are remembering a state that is already yours." This is the key. You're not trying to create the future. You're living from the inner tone of completion, as though the future has already happened. What does this mean in practice? It means walking through the world as someone who knows their desire is real, not someone who's hoping, not someone who's asking, but someone who's simply moving in alignment with a new identity. This doesn't require drama or performance. It can be as simple as the way you breathe, the tone of your thoughts, the ease in your posture. Think of an actor who's completely immersed in their role. They don't have to force every line or question what they're doing. They embody the character and it becomes natural. You are not rehearsing. You are living from a version of yourself that already exists. Neville described this as catching the mood, or dwelling in the end, not by seeing it perfectly, but by feeling its emotional texture. You might not know every detail of what your desire looks like, but you can know what it feels like to already be that version of yourself. Ask yourself, am I still trying to impress the universe? Or am I living as the one who already received? Let go of rituals that reinforce doubt. Let go of techniques that feel like bargains. You don't need to persuade life to give you what's already yours. Instead, hold the tone of completion. Walk in it. Rest in it. Return to it. Not as something you do, but as something you are. This is not about performance. It's about presence. Before we continue, pause for a moment and consider this. What if the reality you've been reacting to isn't even real? What if everything you call fact is just an echo of what you once accepted as true? Neville said, change your conception of yourself, and you will automatically change the world in which you live. If that's true, then the world isn't fixed. It's flexible. It bends to what you believe. If that idea speaks to you, check the pinned comment. There's something there that might shift how you see everything, one quote at a time. Now let's transcend time and space. One of the most overlooked principles in Neville's teachings is that manifestation does not unfold linearly. It's not a matter of doing something today and waiting for the results to appear tomorrow. It's about stepping outside the concept of time altogether and recognizing that what you desire already exists now, in another dimension of awareness. Neville referred to this as the fourth dimensional self, the self that does not observe life as a sequence of events, but as a collection of already existing states. In the fourth dimension, your desire isn't something you create, it's something you choose. He wrote, "The future is not a result of the past, it is the result of present assumptions." This single sentence dismantles the logic most people live by. They believe the past determines what's possible. They rely on the evidence of their senses to measure what can and cannot be, but this keeps them confined to a loop of repetition. To move beyond this loop, you must abandon the belief that time is in charge. Time is not the cause. Assumption is. When you accept that the version of you who already has your desire is real now, existing in consciousness, not fantasy, you begin to align with it. You are not waiting for it to come. You are allowing it to be. Think of it like tuning a radio. The station is already broadcasting. You don't have to create the music, you simply match the frequency. Likewise, your desire is already expressing itself in a realm of consciousness where you've assumed it to be true. Your job is not to beg it into existence. Your job is to enter its atmosphere. Neville often advised to act as if you were remembering the future, not inventing it. That's the key to fourth dimensional thinking. To remember your fulfilled state as if it were part of your past, because in truth it already is. This shifts your entire relationship with time. No more waiting, no more watching the clock. You live from the assumption that it is done, and the outer world begins to reconfigure. Not because time passed, but because consciousness moved. Ask yourself, what if this wasn't something I was hoping to experience? What if it had already happened and I was simply moving through the visible steps of what I've already claimed? Transcending time is not an escape from reality. It's a return to your true nature as a creator, not a reactor. And when you live from this awareness, manifestation becomes not a process, but a recognition, surrender, and faith over control. Trying to control every detail of how your desire unfolds is one of the most common forms of resistance. It creates tension, worry, and constant checking. It places you in the role of the doer, the fixer, the problem solver. But manifestation is not the result of micromanaging reality. It is the result of inner surrender. Neville said, "Your assumption to be effective cannot be a single isolated act. It must be a maintained attitude of the wish fulfilled. And what sustains this attitude is not effort, it's faith. When you live in the feeling of already having, you no longer need to ask how or when. You no longer need to analyze every sign, every delay, every conversation. You move with quiet certainty because you trust in a higher intelligence working through you. This is what it means to surrender, not to give up your desire, but to release your grip on how it should come. Control belongs to the old self, the version of you that believes life happens from the outside in. Surrender belongs to the new self, the version of you who knows that life responds to consciousness. Ask yourself, what would I do differently today if I knew everything was already in motion? What would I let go of? Faith is not passive. It's deeply active on the inside. It is the decision to trust your inner world over appearances, to walk with the confidence of someone who already holds the outcome in hand, even when your senses say otherwise. Let go of control not because it's noble, but because it doesn't work. What works is inner peace, calm acceptance, and the steady feeling that it is done. From that place things move, not because you forced them, but because you no longer needed to. Break free from negative patterns. Every day, your reactions shape your reality more than your intentions do. You might affirm abundance in the morning, but if you react to an unexpected bill with panic, that emotional response speaks louder to the subconscious than any carefully crafted sentence. Neville said, "There is no fiction. Every imagined act is a fact in the fourth dimension of space and will become a fact in this three-dimensional world. That includes your repeated emotional reactions, especially the ones you think are insignificant. The subconscious mind doesn't judge. It simply accepts and replicates. So when you react with frustration, self-pity, jealousy, or anxiety, those states are recorded as assumptions of truth, and they continue to recreate similar outcomes, looping the same stories under different names. To break free from these patterns, you must become aware of how you're responding to life, not just when you're doing techniques, but when you're not thinking about manifestation at all. It's in those quiet, automatic reactions where your true assumptions are revealed. There are two powerful shifts that can help here. First, when you're triggered, pause and ask, how would I respond if I already had what I wanted? This interrupts the old pattern and invites a new self-concept to emerge, not as a performance, but as a new baseline. Second, become aware of your inner conversations. The way you speak to yourself when no one is listening is often the most revealing. Would someone who truly feels fulfilled speak to themselves that way? Negative patterns don't break through force. They dissolve through awareness and replacement. When you consciously choose a new response, one that aligns with your fulfilled self, you're no longer reacting from the past. You're responding from the version of you that already knows the outcome is certain, and in doing so, the outer world begins to reflect a new script. Not because you fought to change it, but because you stopped repeating the old one. There comes a moment when trying ends and acceptance begins. Not passive acceptance, where you resign yourself to things as they are, but conscious acceptance, the kind that chooses a new reality as already true. Neville wrote, "To be transformed, the whole basis of your thoughts must change. That transformation begins when you stop needing your external world to prove anything, and instead, rest in the feeling that what you want is already yours. This is where freedom lives. Freedom from doubt, freedom from striving, freedom from the exhausting cycle of doing more to feel less lack. When you accept something inwardly, you release the fight. You no longer check, measure, or wait for confirmation. You let the old self, built on effort and expectation, fade into the background. And in its place, you allow a new self-image to emerge, one that doesn't hustle to attract, one that simply knows and allows. Ask yourself, what would it feel like to stop trying to be the version of me who has it, and just be that version now? What if you gave up the need to prove or earn your desire? Acceptance is not weakness. It is strength without struggle. It is the quiet power that says, this is mine, not because I see it, but because I have accepted it as done. When that becomes your inner foundation, the world no longer holds your desire at a distance. It brings it closer, naturally, without tension or delay. This is the kind of freedom that can't be forced. It's chosen, and the moment you choose it, everything changes. Not because reality has been convinced, but because you have. Most people focus on the thing they want, a specific amount of money, a relationship, a job title, a home. They define their desire as an object to be acquired, not as a state to be lived from. But what you truly seek is never the object itself. It's the feeling the object represents. Security, connection, freedom, confidence, joy. Neville taught that it is not the object that creates the feeling, but the feeling that draws the object. He said, you do not attract what you want, you attract what you are. This means if you chase the form without aligning with the essence, you're always reaching. But when you become the embodiment of the feeling before anything appears, you begin to magnetize the outer world to reflect it. Think of someone who wants wealth. They may affirm large numbers and visualize lavish experiences, but underneath they feel lack, fear, or desperation. Their energy contradicts the very thing they're trying to create. Now imagine someone who doesn't chase money, but walks through life with an inner sense of ease and sufficiency. They carry the tone of wealth without needing proof of it, and as a result, life responds with the form that matches that internal essence. This is the reversal. You no longer chase the symbol, you become the source of the feeling it represents. And from that place, objects arrive effortlessly, naturally, without force. Ask yourself, what is the real feeling I want behind this desire? Am I waiting for the thing to bring the feeling, or am I willing to feel it now? When you prioritize essence over object, you move out of striving and into alignment. And from alignment, the world arranges itself, not to reward your effort, but to reflect your state. Let the feeling guide you. When you live in the feeling of your desire fulfilled, you no longer need to manage the process. You don't have to ask how many times to affirm, how long to visualize, or whether you're doing it right. You simply know. Because the feeling has become your guide. Neville said, "The feeling of the wish fulfilled, if assumed and sustained, must objectify the state that would have created it." In other words, if you feel the end, you summon the means. The bridge of events unfolds to support the state you've chosen to live from. This is why feeling is not a mood or moment. It is a decision, a quiet internal agreement that says, "This is who I am now." And when you live from that feeling, it naturally colors your thoughts, shapes your reactions, and influences your behavior, not because you're trying to perform a role, but because the role fits. Ask yourself, if it were already mine, how would I feel walking into this moment? How would I think about myself, about others, about life? The feeling guides you not only toward the desire, but away from the doubt. It silences the urge to check, the need to question, the habit of looking for signs. When the feeling is real, the need to search disappears. You become still, not because you've stopped caring, but because you no longer feel incomplete. From that place, actions become natural. You respond from alignment rather than effort. You trust your inner cues, because they are grounded in a state that already knows the outcome. Let the feeling guide you, not to get, but to be, not to chase, but to express. Because when you truly feel it, you no longer need to look for it. It begins to move through you as something already lived. Detachment is one of the most misunderstood concepts in manifestation. To many, it sounds like giving up. To others, it sounds like pretending not to care, or worse, suppressing desire in order to trick the universe into delivering it. But that's not what Neville meant by detachment. Not at all. Detachment, in its truest form, is not a lack of desire. It's the absence of neediness. It's the end of inner conflict. It's the calm that comes when you've accepted something so completely within that you no longer look for it on the outside. Neville taught that once you've assumed the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you've already claimed the state. There is no longer a gap. You don't need to check, control, manage, or manipulate anything. You don't need a sign or a confirmation. You simply know. He wrote, "Assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled and continue feeling that it is fulfilled until that which you feel objectifies itself." Notice, he didn't say you must detach by force. He said you must assume and continue assuming, not with strain, but with stability. This is what true detachment looks like. It's not emotional coldness or avoidance. It's the warmth of certainty, the quiet confidence that what you've accepted inwardly will reflect itself outwardly in perfect time and form. Most people struggle not because their desire is too big, but because their attachment to the outcome is too loud. They are constantly checking, is it working? They ask, should I change my technique? They wonder, why is it taking so long? All of this creates emotional noise, and that noise pushes the desired state further into abstraction, not because it isn't possible, but because the inner self has not fully accepted it as already real. Think of someone ordering at a restaurant. They choose what they want, they place the order, and they know it's on its way. They don't keep asking the waiter if the chef got the message. They don't stare at the kitchen door. They relax, talk, enjoy their moment, because their desire is already in motion. That is detachment. Not pretending you don't want what you want, but releasing the tension around how or when it will appear. And in that release, something remarkable happens. You begin to remember who you are. You step out of the role of the beggar and into the role of the creator. You stop thinking like someone who must earn and begin living as someone who already is. This is the foundation of self-empowerment. Not a boost in confidence, not more discipline, but a shift in identity. You no longer say, I hope it happens. You say, it's done, I already am. You stop reaching and start expressing. You stop hoping and start embodying. Some people seek out courses, books, or guided practices to help strengthen this awareness. And these can be useful if they lead you back to yourself. If they remind you that no one outside of you holds the key, because the key has always been your assumption, your state, your willingness to feel the end and live from it. But no course is required. No outer authority is needed. Everything you need has been given to you already. Your imagination, your awareness, your ability to assume and feel. Ask yourself, what would my day look like if I no longer waited for a sign? What would I stop doing if I truly knew my desire was mine now? What would I allow myself to feel, not in order to manifest, but because I finally accepted that I already have? That is the moment of power, when you stop forcing and start allowing, when you no longer look for change, because you know you are the change. You've left the old state behind, not by fighting it, but by refusing to feed it. You are no longer under the rule of circumstance. You've remembered that your world is responding to you, not controlling you. And once that shift is made, nothing is missing. Nothing is waiting. It's already unfolding, not because you're trying harder, but because you finally stopped trying at all. You've been taught to try harder, to apply more techniques, to wait for signs, to perfect your practice until something finally gives. But the truth is, nothing needs to give, except the belief that effort is the answer. You are not here to manifest through performance. You are here to remember that the one who knows is more powerful than the one who seeks. That the one who assumes is already living in the end. That you don't become what you want. You reveal what you already are. Neville Goddard said, dare to believe in the reality of your assumption and watch the world play its part relative to its fulfillment. This isn't a fantasy. It's the law of consciousness. It responds not to your words but to your inner atmosphere, not to your rituals, but to your identity. Let's recall the simple, quiet truths we explored. You don't need to try every method. You don't need to chase results. You don't need to fix, force, or fight. What you do need is to assume, to accept, to feel, and to be. Be the one who already has. Be the one who already knows. And carry that knowing not for 5 minutes a day, but as the background of everything you do. Ask yourself each morning, who am I being today? Am I reacting as the old version or responding from the new one? Am I still waiting for permission to feel fulfilled? Or am I feeling it now because I've chosen to? Let this be your practice. Not another technique, but a return to stillness, a return to assumption, a return to your true self. And if you're ready to see how a single idea, repeated with clarity, can start to rewrite your understanding of reality, check the pinned comment. One sentence might be enough to shift everything. Go see what speaks to you.